Hello and welcome to the transfer window special of The Boy and the Bear. I'm joined as always by Paddy and Scott, and I'd like to first of all apologise for my voice throughout this, and for once I'm actually going to let the boys give their opinion without interjecting.
You don't apologise for your voice every week now.
Before we begin lads, any thoughts on the Old Firm at the weekend, Paddy boy?
Nope.
Scotty?
Diabolical.
Sound, let's move on. Transfer specials, only place to start is Celtic Football Club. Paddy boy?
For the listener, I'm holding up a banner that says sack the board.
Written by a 7-year-old. In this window spent approximately 13.5 million and sold approximately 26.2 million pounds worth of players. Take it away, please.
Standard. I'm really pissed off. I think the majority of Celtic fans are really pissed off. There's been a growing disconnect between the fans and the board now for years and years. This feels like the culmination of it. It's confirmation of the fact that the fans have higher ambitions for the club than the board do. It also completely undermines the position of Brendan Rodgers, who said that no striker would be allowed to leave if another one wasn't brought in. We've waited until after the transfer deadline to record this, in the hope that Celtic were maybe going to surprise everyone and bring in that striker, and now we're searching the out-of-contract market. So someone like Iheanacho or Jahanbakhsh from Iran, I think, might be coming in. That sort of sums up the state of it. The board had their pants pulled down when they publicly got rejected by Dolberg. And I can't blame him for not coming, because the mood around the club at the moment is terrible. And if he watched that Celtic Rangers game, then you wouldn't want him to sign for either team, would you? Yeah, it's anger, like verging on complete like apathy. Like I've had a few texts from pals today just saying I really can't be bothered with Celtic this season, and like that's just about the worst thing you could do to your fan base. You know, is almost alienate them. And it's true. In the summer, they've blown the Champions League by saving themselves for the last day of the window, where apparently that's where the best value is to be found. It's clearly not true, because we've spent 5.5 million on a winger who was second choice behind the Jacob Braham from Go Ahead Eagles, who we were refusing to pay 5.5 million for 2 weeks ago, and we could have had in time for the qualifier. So yeah, it's a mess. I can't believe, or maybe I can believe, I don't know which is less painful, that we've finished this window without a recognised number 9 at the club. It's a shambles, and if Rangers can get their shit together, surely favourites for the league. If Hearts can get their shit together and Rangers continue to play like they're playing, then Tony Bloom is looking a lot less daft. But that, yeah, I am hurt, but I've got no place to put that hurt, because there's no communication between the fans and the board whatsoever.
It genuinely seems, Pat, with every transfer in or out, there's question marks over either one, why it's happened in the first place, or two, the conduct throughout it. Like, why is Adam Ida down doing a medical in Swansea like last week, and then you still let him go knowing that you don't have a replacement?
Completely undermines manager. Rodgers came out and spoke to the press saying no one's going to leave here unless we bring someone in. They've sold Ida. And Yang was probably hanging about Birmingham somewhere, waiting to sign for Birmingham, and hasn't gone. So, yeah, it's Michael Nicholson famously now came out and said we want to be world class in everything that we do. I think we've got a world class fan base. We've got a world class stadium that does need some upgrades, and we're not seeing any money towards that recently. We've got a world class atmosphere, but not for the Champions League this season, and it's looking like we've got a board that couldn't manage a bowling club. So, yeah, I am apathetic, to be honest. It's beyond anger now. It's kind of just, I need to accept that the current board don't have the same ambition for the club that the fan base do.
We all know that football's quite a short-term minded game. Any chance that Celtic obviously get to January, because I think a lot of fans forget that the window does only open in 3.5-4 months now. So any chance Celtic get to January, they're still top of the league. you sign 3 players, you're still in the Europa League from that point of view, and that the board can recover this situation, or do you sense among the fan base on a whole now that this was the straw that broke the camel's back?
I mean, this is like me complaining about Celtic's transfer window activity is not old news, and I think it's taken this long for you guys to finally understand it from a Celtic fan's point of view. Like, we're watching managed decline, and we have been for ages, and the fans have been screaming about this louder and louder, and now it's reached a point where I think they've actually, I can't see the season improving, because I think they've probably pissed Rodgers off so much and they've undermined him publicly now. They've made him look like an idiot. So I don't know if there's some dispute there between the board and Brendan Rodgers yet again. There has to be. There has to be. If you apply that situation to any other walk of life, that you've had someone having to give public statements, and now Rodgers might also have to take blame for part of that, because he has been a little bit outspoken, and whilst he's right in everything he's obviously saying, he has been very outspoken, and you can't imagine the board have been too happy about how public he's been in terms of talking about transfers, etc. He's not really mitigated the press as well as he possibly could have. I think Rodgers has done everything he possibly could, because he has to address the noise from the fans and the wider media that Celtic aren't investing. He's being very careful not to throw anyone in particular under the bus, and there's been a few moments where he's become a wee bit irate and lost his temper immediately after games, and you can't blame him. I think Rodgers has been a human shield for the board. They've used him to deflect away from their own issues, and I think it's deeply unfair on him. He takes his fair share of the blame for some of the recent performances in the Kairat games. I mean, there's no getting away from that, but it's it's just so depressing if you're a Celtic fan. And do you know what, you've said we might limp on till January, whatever. That would then make it 12 months since Kyogo left. That's a year. You're telling me that on the last day of the summer transfer window, where they're lining up a free transfer for Iheanacho, that's the first time they've actually thought about replacing Kyogo. I think it's embarrassing.
Was Ida not the replacement for Kyogo?
And they let him go.
Yeah, I know, but it's just...
None of it makes any sense, whatever way you shake it.
Well, I try and shake it many ways because it's my job, but...
Don't ever say that again.
In terms of what you're saying there about managed decline from Celtic, and from a board point of view, I do try and understand it, and my argument's always been that the board are doing what's best in the interests of the business and maybe not the football side of it, and trying to protect the business investment. Is it not a systematic failure of Scottish football in general? Like, even Rangers last night, and we'll get on to you, Scott, in a second, it always seems that every transfer window, like loans or transfers, come out of absolutely nowhere on the last day, whereas if you look at clubs from around Europe, yes, like for instance Isak yesterday across the line at the last minute, but that's been done throughout the whole of the window, whereas Celtic and Rangers are almost mopping up the crumbs off the table.
Well, I'm going to come back to your first point there. If the board are trying to do Celtic right financially, they've lost us 40 million by failing to invest in the squad before a Champions League playoff, and that's the most risky strategy that they could have possibly adopted. The least risk-averse thing to do would have been invest in the team early so that they've got time to train, and the Celtic team is in a place where you've got quality up front who can, score against Kairat Almaty. The most risky thing they could have done is what they've just done, and they've cost whoever's decision that was has cost Celtic 40 million. So they're not even looking after the best interests of the club financially. So that argument is gone now, because that's the argument they used to hide behind, Steve. And I know why you're asking the question, because we've got to try and think of some reason why, but it's one of the most expensive mistakes or strategies anyone's ever implemented at Celtic. In terms of, to address your second point, the reason Scottish clubs typically leave it late is because it's a trickle-down transfer system. Usually, say, if Isak goes to Liverpool eventually, then Newcastle need to bring in someone, and then whoever they've brought in will need to bring someone, and Scotland usually falls down quite close to the bottom of that list, which is why you're left scrambling around. But there's still bargains to be found, and Ange Postecoglou was, bust that theory wide open when he arrived and brought in the players he wanted early.
I was going to say, I was absolutely stunned yesterday that it was Hibs that were linked with London Dykes. Now, obviously, it didn't go through, but surely to God, you're looking at it and you're going, "No, I know you're laughing, but you don't have a striker." Like,
mate, I'd have taken Steve Clark.
But like, it was obvious there that there was, and I'm just kind of making this up, but you can surmise that maybe the issue was the wages that Lyndon Dyke was on and who was covering what. But Celtic can afford to pay Lyndon Dykes wages, even if it's 6 months to get you through to January. He plays in a World Cup year. He comes to the country where obviously he's trying to get a game for it, and Celtic have actually got a striker that can put the ball in the net.
I'd probably rather have him than the Middlesbrough reject of Kelechi and Acho, but Scott has been like a mute doll, so I'm going to let him speak about Rangers. But to sum it all up, it's a disaster and there's no hiding places anymore. But see, the most frustrating thing is this podcast is the only outlet I've got, because the board aren't listening and they don't care, and that's why you get protests in front of Celtic Park, and I really hope there is one. Last point, and I promise I'll shut up. The board are so lucky that our next home game isn't for 3 weeks, because if we were playing at home this weekend, I can't even imagine it. Sorry, Scott.
Yeah, that gives you 3 weeks to find someone better to write those banners, to be honest. And that's probably the most enjoyable 11 minutes Scotty's ever had on this podcast. So, welcome, mate. As bad a day as it was for Celtic, as good a day for Rangers.
It's incredible. I mean, that's an incredible 11 minutes of my life. Thank you very much, Pat. That's cheered me right up. No, I think in contrast to Patrick and Celtic, we had a very good window. I think it's been one of the best windows we've had. If you look at the overall quality we brought in, the money we spent.
What difference a week makes, eh?
No, but you're trying to be objective. Obviously, like I still think the squad is good. I still think we do have some really good players. My gripe isn't with them. My gripe is with the manager on how he's getting the best out of the players that he's identified, along with the board. But I do think from a overview of the squad, there is a massive improvements. Like Majowski is a good addition up front. I like the look of Tello Asgard. We've actually signed wingers, which we've not had wingers for quite. We've always had one, where we get two and then one gets injured. So you know what I mean, like last season it was just it brought Cortez back in and Tierney, and then Cortez gets injured. It was just Tierney, whereas now we've got multiple options. So in the defence, I'm quite intrigued by the Canadian centre half we brought in yesterday, Cornelius. He looks really physically strong, fast. Looks like he's a good ball carrier as well. So he looks like he's going to fit really well into the system. So I would say it's hard to not be positive about the overall window. There's still a few gaps. I think left back, it would be nice to bring in another left back and maybe a bit more experience in that side. But it is difficult to be overly critical.
Top signing has to be Majowski, surely. That's the one that started to kind of change, obviously, in the last week. When that got announced, you were going, woof, like this.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
absolutely raging. Would have been a perfect signing for Celtic.
Yeah, I think it's transformative. I really do. I think he's a lot more mobile than, you look at Cyril Dessers obviously departing, and I think like he's been good with his numbers overall, like good goal scoring record. It wasn't his biggest fan, and I make no apologies for that, but decent enough player. But you look at the difference in the press. I think Majowski presses a lot better, a lot sharper, his movement's better. So time will tell whether he gets the service to score the goals, but I'm very, very impressed with his debut against Celtic.
Yeah, do you know what I was impressed with Scotty is that, see, at the weekend, obviously everybody was watching him closely, and I don't think there's any doubt that everybody knows he can score goals in Scotland.
Yeah.
He's obviously had a difficult period away, but it was his demanding of the ball, and when he didn't receive the ball, it was like it wasn't like petulantly throwing the hands in the air. He was actually turning round to whether it be Suter or whoever was playing the pass through and explaining his movements of why he wanted the pass in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe what you've been missing. You need 2 or 3 of them in the team to then bring the other ones on. You're never going to have a team of 11 leaders, but you need one in every position to have a spine of a team going forward. And I think that was the biggest thing I took away from watching him.
I think he was saying that to Maida and Hatate as well, because they were passing to him quite a lot as well.
It's not like Maida not to hit a target. And so that was for me the biggest thing. And obviously I wanted to come to you on the Nico Razgan affair. I know you're part of his bandwagon. So
absolutely.
Were you happy to see him stay at the club? Do you think it was forced on Russell Martin that he had to stay just through circumstances, or do you think that conversations happened before the window's closed?
I think it's an interesting one. First and foremost, I'm delighted he's staying, because I think he's the best midfielder in our team. I think he's the best midfielder in Scotland, and I make no apologies for that. Pat, I know that Callum McGregor, but I think there's been a decline or a drop off. I mean, it's only natural. He is getting on. I don't think Hatate's anywhere near the level he was a couple of years ago, and I think Nico, based on last the tail end of last year and continue to get picked for Belgium. I think you can see his leadership qualities, you can see what he brings. So I think that's a monumental sign. I just hope to God that him and Russell Martin can find a way to sort out the clear issues between them, because having Nico Raskin in a Rangers team makes Rangers far better.
Nico Raskin is going to outlast Russell Martin quite comfortably, I think.
Well, that was my next question, to be honest with you, because I also took it as a bit of an indicative that they've given Russell Martin all this money, and it's clearly his type of players they're signing.
Yep.
And if you looked at his statement from the weekend talking about how obviously the members of the board came in and said, we've had 90 days, ignored outside noise, this is a plan. It sounds like he's there for the rest of the season, Scotty.
Oh,
surely,
yes.
Surely as a fan base, do you now see with the last week you've had in the transfer window a collective of fans going, right, let's just see how this pans out now? Or is there kind of a lot of anger still within the fans?
I think there's still anger. I think like Pat, it's close to apathy at some sections. I do think that fans really do want to get on board with this manager, really do, but he's not really helping himself. And I think shunning your best player to the side because of a fragile ego or not understanding players or whatever it is, maybe whatever you're hearing on the background, where it's like two egos clashing and they can't find a solution. But you know, we've heard about Russell Martin's man management, and I think that has to come to the forefront. It has to, if you're going to get the best out of your biggest asset, you're going to have to do something. So I think he is here for the season. Unfortunately for all of us, we have to watch this terrible, turgid football. For Tony Bloom, it's probably a delight because it means that he actually has a genuine chance of winning the league.
We'll need to get Kenny on.
I know, right? But I think it was interesting because obviously he came out and said, the chairman was there on Friday, said ignore the noise, which is an interesting strategy to take, because I understand that it's very early on in the season, it's in your process, but you also need to be aware that the fans pay the wages, they pay the money, they bring all the money into the club, so you can't overly ignore them for too long. You know, their voice must be heard, they must be taken into consideration. Yes, okay, there's an argument that we've maybe shouted from the rooftop a wee bit too early about sacking the manager, but at the same time we're very passionate.
I think there's concrete evidence to
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there is. We've not got a win this season yet.
No, the thing is, you understand as well from a demanding fan point of view, right? It's like people are it's a difficult one because on Sunday there was better signs. You know, they weren't playing this absolute kamikaze high line defending that we've seen for the last 10 games. Do you mean? It was a bit more structured.
There's a fair share of ropey moments. I think if if the Celtic had anything going forward, I think you probably would have conceded.
No, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not. But what I mean is, if you look at like the Bruges game, for example, right, both Bruges games, the incredibly high line we were playing up in the halfway line, defending in the halfway line, that wasn't as evident on Sunday.
I think there's a bit of that, Scott, and then there's also, like, you're talking about a team that couldn't score against Kairat Almaty for 200 minutes versus Bruges, who are
I get that.
They looked like a quarter-finalist level Champions League team again. So, like, there's levels to it.
I get that, mate. But that's what I was just about to say. Like, I want to be happy, and obviously keeping a clean sheet against your greatest rivals is always good, but there was nothing from your attacking output. So it wasn't like a ferocious Celtic attack, so it's really difficult to sit and be overly positive given what we've seen over the last like 10 games, you know, prior to the Old Firm. So unfortunately I do agree, I think he will be here for the majority of the season, but if it continues and we continue to draw games in the league, or after the international break we get turned over by Hearts and Hibs, because I really do, I'm a bit concerned about Hibs especially. Like, their front line looks incredible. Hearts look like a really solid team that typical Derek McInnes would be right there to the death, and I don't know if we've got the physicality or the mental strength to really dig in. So if we get turned over by either of those teams and then we then start the Europa League dodgy, when in actual fact you look at the Europa League, we've actually got a very good set of games, you know, and it's like Porto and stuff, but we've beat Porto before, so it's like I have no fear for that Europa League campaign under a different manager. Do you mean? under this manager, it makes me very, very nervous. So, on one hand, I'm positive about the overall direction. I believe that we've signed some really good players, but just
who'd have thought that last week?
I know. No. I haven't finished, but under this manager, I'm very nervous. I don't believe that he can get the best out of this group. I don't think he can play this way that he's saying he wants to play, because there's no evidence for it. We didn't record a single shot on target.
Officially the worst derby ever. Eh?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Celtic's lowest XG of all time.
Yeah. Well,
honestly, it was brutal. And
it was.
And I'll always come back to this point, is that the Sky rights for Scottish football are completely dictated on those games, and there's a reason they're played at 12 o'clock on a Sunday. Well, there's multiple reasons why they're played at 12 o'clock on a Sunday, but the main one is the fact that it's on before Super Sunday in England, and it's to kick people off and as a kick-off game. And I know the Liverpool-Arsenal main headline game wasn't much better in the first half, but good God.
It felt like an end-of-season game. Like Scotty and I watched it together, and we both like, usually when we meet up to watch those games, like, we're pacing around or we're like hiding behind the couch and there's like attacks coming. There's none of that. Like, we just sat beside each other the whole game going, "This is crap, innit?" And it was an odd experience, because I never thought Celtic were going to concede or score, so I just sort of sat there enjoying my coffee.
For both managers, it was kind of not a perfect result, but one that's you're not going to lose any sleep over.
If I was a supporter of the Edinburgh clubs, I'd be really excited.
Oh yeah, you'd be licking your lips, like you'd
I'd be
like,
smelling blood this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think
that's such an indicative of, like, Rangers have to come back at some point. Like, that is a mental statement. That, like, it's not as if Celtic and Rangers have, like, won league titles between them in the last 15, 20 years, and Hearts are coming nowhere. Like,
Rangers got one.
You're now seeing Rangers, like, getting dragged into that conversation, whereas, like, the squad's there. And what I was going to say to you, Scotty, is that excuses do have to end after the international break and going into Christmas period, because he's now got his back four.
Well,
they wanted. He got that yesterday.
You're the one making the excuses for him, Steve.
If he doesn't want to,
Scotty wants him out.
If he doesn't want to play Suter, now he doesn't have to play Suter if that's who he signed this boy to replace. He's obviously got Max Aarons, etc. Who I do believe there is a good football in there, and sometimes the shirt's heavy. The shirt, deep down, the shirt can be heavy. He's now got a striker that I think everybody agrees is probably the best number 9 in Scotland now. He's
big shout that.
If you say Maeda once more to me,
Kieran Bowie.
Well,
looking
Miovski's done it over a period of time, hasn't he? So, like, jury's out on that one. So I think Miovski's the best striker in Scotland, and I think if you put Miovski in a Hibs team, he would score more goals. And
I think Johnny Kenny would have something to say about that, wouldn't he?
So yeah, the excuses have to end. You've spent the money, Scotty, and it leads me perfectly on to my next question. Paddy boy, how worried are you that Celtic don't win the league this season? Much more worried
now than I was 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I was still banking on the signings coming in. I still think Celtic have enough domestically, but now we're going into it without a striker, like without a recognised number 9. So it's hard for me to be really optimistic about it. I certainly don't think this is a treble winning Celtic team, or even a double winning Celtic team, but it might have enough to limp over the line given the state that Rangers have started the season in. If this was any other Rangers team, maybe apart from Beale's one, then a Rangers team that didn't currently have 4 points after 4 games, and I think honestly I'd be kissing the league goodbye already. I'm looking ahead to the Europa League terrified. I think that shows you where we're at, given that, we went out to Bayern Munich with a last minute goal in the Champions League in February, and that just feels like so long ago. The case for optimism, I think, is hoping that Alistair Johnston and Jota come back fully recovered. For Jota, it's such a bad injury that you just hope you're going to see the player that we lost.
Not even that, Pat. You don't want the pressure on him straight away. You want to bed him back into the team.
Exactly. And with the lack of depth now, it's hard to see that being the case. I think there'll be such a clamour for Jota to come back in. I said a while ago, and we had a clip that went semi-viral, like, I will never be bored watching Celtic. But right now, well, I'll never be bored going to watch Celtic, going into Parkhead and supporting the team. But right now, it feels like the only thing fans can do to get the message across is actually vote with the feet and not buy the merch. It just feels so counterproductive, and that's why people just feel really, I don't know, stuck and hurt because there's no other communication channel with the board. And it's I wouldn't be surprised now if another team other than Celtic win the league. But the international breaks come at a good time. Hopefully, Rodgers can work out how he. Maybe he'll give Craig Levein a call and say, "How did you play that 4-6-0, mate? Like that looked quite good." I don't know, but we'll see what happens. I still think Celtic will win the league, but I'm a lot less confident than I was. It's nice for Rangers to give us a head start anyway.
Yeah, Scotty, how's your confidence levels now that Rangers can maybe win the league? On the spot.
Yeah, thanks for that, mate. Cliff it. I'm still really, really struggling to see under this manager if we can actually make a go of the title. It's very hard to see, even though Celtic are an absolute basket case. I have no confidence in Martin's ability to get us firing. We looked a little bit better, but again, poor Celtic team. Is that a barometer for? Not really. Do you mean time will tell when we've got to face an attacking team?
Liam Scales single-handedly kept you out.
I know.
Despite the best efforts of everybody else.
I know, but I think if we can get the act together after the international break, now like you said, there's no excuses. He's got his players in, right? If he can sit and resolve the issue with Raskin and he can find a way to play him in the team and we start to turn it around, then yeah, I think we can make a really good go of the title. But right now, I don't think we'll win the title.
Do you know how I mentioned Kenny earlier on? And
Yes.
we've been chatting a lot about the Edinburgh clubs.
Yes.
I sent him a message while we were recording there to say, what do you actually think about Hearts winning the league? Be serious. And he came back and said, with the current turmoil and average transfer windows at both Old Firm clubs, the backing of Bloom and excellent recruitment for Hearts, along with no European football, means there's no reason we can't win the league or at least take it right to the wire. So
Nice to see Kenny subscribe to Premium ChatGPT because no chance he wrote that.
Yeah, no.
we'll get him on. We'll let him do it. We'll analyse that with him maybe after the Rangers play Hearts. But
Well, listen, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
Also being able to win the league. So
I need to stop talking about Celtic for a while. I'm just
Yeah,
heartbroken.
he's done. I mean, I could chat all day about.
No, I'm
Martin,
done now.
Yeah.
it's time for Rangers to stop chatting and actually start playing some
Well,
football.
fingers crossed, mate. Yeah, that would be lovely.
You've been listening to The Boy and the Bear. You will find this episode on Spotify, YouTube, etc. And we obviously clip up some of our main topics discussed on the podcast, and you will find them on TikTok and Instagram at The Boy Bear Pod. And if anybody's got any questions, complaints, or any comments on any of the signings made, where will they find us?
And you can email us at theboyandthebear@gmail.com.
Superb.
Sack the board.
And Martin, we don't trust.
See you soon, lads.
See you lads.
See you later, lads. Follow.